No one expected such a twist. Alex always thought that going to the gym was only about training. But one meeting with Coach Michael changed everything. Friendship, trust, and a hidden truth that took his life to a whole new level. Alex had never thought much about gyms before. For years, he had been the kind of person who saw fitness centers as loud, crowded places filled with people chasing perfect bodies. But when he turned 22, living alone in New York as a college student, he decided to take control of his routine. Classes, part-time work, and the endless noise of the city weighed heavily on him. He wanted strength, balance, maybe even a bit of discipline. So one evening, almost on impulse, he signed up for a membership at a gym just a few blocks away from his apartment. Walking in for the first time felt strange. The glass doors slid open, and a rush of cold air mixed with the scent of metal, rubber, and disinfectant filled his senses. Music pulsed softly in the background, machines clattered, and people moved rhythmically between sets. He felt out of place, a newcomer in a world where everyone seemed to know what they were doing. His eyes darted around nervously, as if he might be judged for being unfamiliar with the equipment. That's when he met Michael. Michael was the head trainer at the gym, though he didn't carry himself with arrogance. Tall, confident, and approachable, he had a way of making even a stranger feel welcome. His smile wasn't forced. It had warmth that disarmed Alex instantly. Michael introduced himself with a handshake that felt firm but not overbearing. "First time here?" he asked, his tone friendly, not mocking. Alex admitted it was, and Michael offered to show him around. The tour began with simple explanations: treadmills, free weights, benches, resistance machines. But what caught Alex off guard was how easily Michael mixed casual conversation with instruction. He didn't just say, "Here's how to lift." Instead, he asked about Alex's background, his studies, his goals. It felt less like a trainer reciting gym rules and more like someone genuinely interested in who Alex was. At first, Alex answered cautiously, giving short responses, but Michael's patience drew him out. By the time they reached the weight racks, Alex had already admitted he wasn't just there for muscles. He wanted to feel more in control of his life. Michael nodded, as if he understood that deeper need immediately. That moment lingered with Alex. It wasn't just about fitness anymore. Over the next few weeks, their conversations deepened. What began as small talk about posture and nutrition turned into discussions about ambition, fear, and personal struggles. Michael had a way of listening that unsettled Alex in the best possible way. It was as if every word mattered. Every hesitation revealed something Michael noticed but didn't push too hard on. And yet, beneath the warmth, Alex felt an undercurrent he couldn't quite name. There were moments when Michael's eyes lingered a fraction too long, when silence stretched between them and carried more weight than it should have. Alex would feel his pulse quicken, unsure if it was just intimidation or something else entirely. It was supposed to be simple, a trainer helping a student, but simplicity was slipping away. There was tension in the air, subtle but undeniable. Every time Michael adjusted his form, his hand brushing briefly against Alex's shoulder or back, Alex felt a spark of unease mixed with anticipation. Michael never crossed any lines, never said anything inappropriate, but the unspoken energy between them grew stronger with every session. Alex caught himself replaying conversations long after leaving the gym, questioning why they resonated so deeply. Was he imagining it? Was Michael just naturally kind and supportive, or was there something beneath his encouragement that Alex wasn't ready to confront? That uncertainty gnawed at him, making even the most ordinary workouts feel charged with something unexplainable. What unsettled Alex most was how quickly Michael seemed to earn his trust. He had friends, professors, even family who didn't know him as well as this man he had only recently met. It was strange, almost unsettling, to feel seen so clearly. Michael asked about stress, about what weighed on him beyond the classroom. He spoke about balance, about the importance of mental strength alongside physical effort. Those conversations felt less like gym advice and more like pieces of a larger truth Alex wasn't sure he was ready to face. Each evening, as Alex left the gym, The city lights blurred into the rhythm of his thoughts. He came for the exercises, but he left with questions. Why did Michael's words stay with him? Why did he feel both drawn in and unsettled, as if he was standing on the edge of something that could change him forever? The gym, once just a place for training, was now charged with intrigue. And Michael, the charismatic coach who had entered Alex's life so casually, seemed to hold a key to something Alex didn't yet understand, but desperately wanted to. Alex had been going to the gym for weeks now, long enough to establish a routine, long enough to know the rhythm of the place, the clatter of weights at peak hours, the hum of treadmills, the way fluorescent lights flickered slightly against the mirrors that stretched across the walls. But what unsettled him was not the environment. It was the growing presence of Michael in his thoughts, a presence that followed him long after he left the gym. At first, Michael's attentiveness seemed normal. He was a trainer. After all, someone paid to notice details, to correct form, to motivate. But with Alex, it often went beyond what felt ordinary. When Alex struggled with a set, Michael's encouragement had a softness that felt personal, his voice lowering just enough to cut through the noise around them. When others passed by with questions, Michael always returned his focus quickly, almost deliberately, as though Alex mattered more than the rest. The change was subtle, but Alex couldn't ignore it. He began to notice how Michael's eyes lingered when they spoke, how he seemed to study Alex not just as a client, but as a person. A simple question like, "How was your day?" carried a weight that made Alex hesitate before answering, as though Michael wasn't asking politely. He wanted to know the truth. And that was what confused Alex the most. It felt good. It felt validating to be seen, to have someone pay such close attention to him, to treat his words as though they had depth. Yet at the same time, it terrified him. The gym was supposed to be a neutral space, a place for progress measured in reps and miles. Now, every workout carried an undercurrent of tension, a silent energy that left Alex questioning himself long after he walked out the door. The longer it went on, the harder it became to dismiss. There were times when Michael adjusted his posture, moving behind him to correct the way his shoulders aligned, and Alex felt the nearness more than the correction. He wasn't imagining the pause before Michael pulled away, the almost imperceptible moment where it seemed as though neither wanted the contact to end too quickly. But was that real? Or was Alex projecting his own confusion onto someone simply being kind? The thought haunted him. He would replay interactions over and over in his head. The way Michael leaned against the railing during conversations, the way his laughter seemed reserved just for him, the way he occasionally let silence stretch until it became almost unbearable. None of it was overt, yet none of it felt accidental. At times, Alex felt elated. He would leave the gym with a strange rush of energy, convinced there was something more, convinced he wasn't imagining the connection. But then doubt would strike, sharp and heavy. What if he had read it all wrong? What if Michael was just doing his job, and Alex's interpretations were nothing more than dangerous fantasies? That fear gnawed him most of all, the fear of being misunderstood. The idea of exposing himself, of voicing what he thought he saw in those long glances, carried the risk of humiliation. One wrong step, one misplaced word, and everything could shatter. The trust, the comfort, even the safety of the gym itself. And yet, the signs kept coming. Michael remembered details Alex barely remembered telling him. His upcoming exams, his part-time job hours, the stress he carried from juggling it all. He asked about those things not casually, but with genuine concern, circling back days later to check in as though it mattered to him personally. It was too much to be coincidence. The gym, once a space of discipline, had become a stage for a silent game neither admitted to playing. Every interaction carried double meanings Alex couldn't untangle. He found himself rehearsing conversations in advance, bracing for moments that might tilt towards something more, and then chastising himself for expecting it. He wanted clarity, yet feared it at the same time. One evening, as he prepared to leave, Michael called after him. It was nothing extraordinary, just his name spoken across the room, but the way it sounded, firm yet unusually quiet, made Alex freeze. He turned, and for a second, the crowded noise of the gym seemed to fade. Michael's gaze held as longer than it should have, and in that gaze Alex felt the weight of every unspoken question he hadn't dared to ask. He left that night unsettled, his mind spinning with possibilities. What was happening between them? Was it real, or only in his imagination? He didn't know. What he did know was that his life had become more complicated than he had ever intended. Each session drew him deeper into a current he wasn't sure he could resist. The doubts were growing louder, but so was the pull. And Alex began to understand that the real challenge ahead wasn't lifting weights or running faster. It was facing the truth of what Michael's attention meant, and whether he was ready to accept where it might lead. The gym was quieter than usual that night. Most of the machines stood empty, and the clatter of weights had faded into silence. Only the faint hum of air conditioning and the distant thud of someone locking up at the front broke the stillness. Alex had stayed late, finishing his routine with the kind of restless energy that seemed to haunt him lately. He told himself it was just another workout, but deep down he knew why he lingered. Michael was still there. Michael stood near the back wall, writing notes on a clipboard, but his movements lacked their usual focus. His posture seemed heavy, as if his thoughts pressed down harder than any barbell ever could. Alex noticed the difference immediately. He had come to recognize Michael's easy confidence, the calm way he carried himself even in chaos. But tonight, something was off. When their eyes met across the near-empty floor, Michael hesitated, then set the clipboard aside. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. Instead, he walked toward Alex slowly, almost cautiously, as if unsure whether he should close the distance at all. "You're still here," Michael said finally, his voice quieter than usual. Alex nodded, suddenly aware of the tension building in the space between them. "Yeah, couldn't finish earlier. Thought I'd stay a little longer." Michael looked at him for a moment, then exhaled, almost like he'd been holding his breath. "It's strange, isn't it? How this place feels different when it's empty. No music, no noise, just silence. Makes it harder to ignore what's really on your mind." The words landed heavily, carrying more than casual meaning. Alex felt his chest tighten. He didn't know what Michael was trying to say, but he knew it wasn't about the gym anymore. "What's on your mind?" Alex asked, his voice unsteady. Michael hesitated, his eyes narrowing slightly, as though measuring how much truth he could risk. "More than I should probably admit," he said at last. His tone wasn't playful. It was layered with something heavier. Fear, maybe, or honesty long kept inside. Alex froze. His heart pounded in his chest, every beat echoing louder than the empty room around them. For weeks he had wondered if he was imagining it all. The looks, the attention, the way silence between them seemed to stretch until it nearly snapped. But now Michael was saying it aloud, hinting at something real. Michael shifted, leaning against a bench, his gaze still locked on Alex. "I tell myself it's just work. I'm just doing my job, helping you improve, checking in. But that's not the whole truth, is it?" The admission hung in the air like a weight neither of them could put down. Alex didn't know how to respond. Part of him wanted to retreat, to protect himself from the risk of misinterpretation. Yet another part, the louder part, wanted clarity, wanted to hear Michael say it plainly. "You notice things," Alex said cautiously, testing the waters. "Things about me. Things other people don't." Michael's expression softened, though the tension in his jaw betrayed the battle inside him. "I do. And it scares me, because it feels like I've crossed some invisible line I wasn't supposed to. But I can't stop noticing. I can't stop caring." The silence that followed was thick, oppressive. Every second stretched like a wire pulled too tight, threatening to snap. Alex's thoughts raced, torn between relief and fear. He had wanted this acknowledgement for so long, but now that it was here, it felt almost overwhelming. "There's something between us, isn't there?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Michael didn't answer right away. He looked away, then back, as though afraid of the truth even as he reached for it. Finally, he nodded once firmly. "Yes, there is. And pretending otherwise isn't working anymore." The confession hit Alex like a spark in dry air, igniting everything that had been building silently between them. He felt the weight of weeks of unspoken words, of long glances and careful pauses, finally collapsing into a single undeniable truth. Neither of them moved closer, yet the distance between them seemed to shrink all the same. The empty gym felt alive with a charge that had nothing to do with weights or machines. It was something raw, something fragile, and neither of them dared to break it with the wrong move. For the first time, Alex didn't feel like he was imagining it. He wasn't alone in his confusion. Michael had crossed the same invisible line, and they were both standing in the space beyond it, unsure of where it would lead. The truth had been spoken, and though it didn't resolve the questions or erase the risks, it changed everything. The gym was no longer just a gym. The conversations were no longer just casual. The trust between them had become something else, something that could not be undone. Alex left that night with his mind racing, the echoes of Michael's words replaying over and over. There was something between them. He had heard it. He had felt it. And now there was no going back. It didn't happen all at once. At first, their connection was a quiet thing, contained within the walls of the gym, wrapped in conversations that only the two of them shared. But secrets have a way of slipping through cracks, and soon enough whispers began to spread. Someone saw them leaving together after closing. Someone else noticed the way Michael paid closer attention to Alex than to anyone else. What began as curiosity quickly twisted into judgment. The shift was immediate. Friends who had once been supportive started to ask pointed questions, their tones laced with suspicion. "Why are you always there so late?" When Michael seemed close. What they really meant was clear, though the words were unspoken. The gym, once a space of progress and routine, now felt like a stage where every move was being scrutinized. The comments started small, dropped in passing like careless sparks. A laugh too sharp, a joke made loudly enough to be overheard, a smirk when Alex walked by. But soon the sparks grew into fire. Someone posted a comment online, vague but unmistakably about him. Some people go to the gym for gains, others for something else. Within hours, it spread among his circle of acquaintances. The weight of judgment settled on Alex's shoulders heavier than any barbell. He felt it in every glance, in every silence that used to be filled with casual friendliness. His own friends fractured in their reactions. Some defended him, saying it was nobody's business, while others distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the rumors. The betrayal stung most from those he thought would stand by him without hesitation. Michael noticed, of course. He asked about the change in Alex's demeanor, the tension in his voice when he spoke. Alex tried to brush it off, but the truth slipped through. They know, he admitted one evening, his voice low, or at least they think they do. Michael's expression tightened, a flicker of anger crossing his face before settling into something more controlled. "Let them think," he said, though his tone lacked its usual certainty. "We know the truth." But even as he said it, Alex could see the unease behind his eyes. The hardest part wasn't the strangers. It was the people who once claimed to care. Old friends avoided him. Conversations shifted when he entered the room. Laughter died into silence. Each reaction chipped away at his confidence. For the first time, Alex began to question whether he had made a mistake, whether trusting Michael so openly had exposed him to a world he wasn't ready to face. But in the midst of isolation, something unexpected happened. He found new voices, new faces, people who understood. An acquaintance from class introduced him to a small community center downtown, a place where young people gather to talk, to support each other, to share stories that rarely found acceptance elsewhere. The first time Alex walked through those doors, he felt the difference immediately. No judgment, no sideways glances, no coded remarks. Just open conversations, nods of recognition, and the unspoken relief of being understood without explanation. They talked about challenges he knew too well, family who couldn't accept, friends who walked away, the sting of being reduced to whispers and rumors. For the first time in weeks, Alex didn't feel alone. The group gave him perspective. They spoke of resilience, of carving out space in a world that often tried to deny it. They reminded him that strength wasn't just measured in physical endurance, but in the ability to stand against the tide of disapproval. Slowly, Alex felt his balance returning, a new kind of confidence forming from the solidarity he found there. Still, the tension lingered. Each day at the gym carried the same risk, the stares, the murmurs, the possibility of something harsher. Michael carried his own burden, facing subtle challenges from colleagues who noticed his favoritism, hearing whispers behind closed doors. Yet when their eyes met, there was a shared understanding. They were in this together. The challenge wasn't just about enduring judgment. It was about deciding who they were willing to be in the face of it. Alex realized that silence could no longer protect him. Pretending, hiding, shrinking under the weight of rumors only gave them power. And though fear still clawed at him, another feeling began to take root: defiance. What had started as provocation from others had become a test of his own resolve. He couldn't control what people said or thought, but he could choose how he responded. And with Michael beside him, and the support of those who understood, Alex began to believe that standing firm, even when the world watched closely, was the only way forward. The whispers hadn't destroyed him. If anything, they had pushed him closer to the truth of who he was and the life he wanted to live. And though the road ahead promised more judgment, more resistance, he was no longer facing it alone. The storm of judgment did not vanish overnight. The whispers still followed Alex when he entered the gym, the sharp glances from people who thought they knew his story, the quiet disapproval from some who believed they had the right to decide how others should live. For a while, it seemed easier to retreat, to keep his head down and let the noise wash over him. But something had shifted inside Alex, something stronger than fear. After weeks of carrying secrets, he felt the exhaustion of hiding. And with that exhaustion came a decision. If the world insisted on watching, then he would no longer play small. Michael was not immune either. The pressure at work mounted, colleagues questioned his choices, and management hinted that his reputation might be at risk. He could have chosen distance, could have drawn a line and stepped back into the safety of silence. But he didn't. Instead, he stood by Alex, quietly at first, then more openly, until it became clear that whatever the cost, he had made his choice. Their relationship, once hidden between glances and unspoken words, began to take shape in the open. They no longer rushed out of the gym at different times, no longer avoided being seen together in public. It was a risk, and both of them knew it, but it was also a liberation. Every time Alex walked beside Michael without hesitation, every time he ignored the whispers, it felt like reclaiming a piece of himself that had been stolen by fear. The backlash didn't disappear, but neither did the support. From the community center to unexpected allies among classmates and even strangers, Alex found voices rising with him. Messages of encouragement arrived quietly at first. Someone telling him they admired his courage, another saying his story made them feel less alone. Each word built him up, reminding him that strength often attracts strength. Still, there were difficult nights. Nights when doubt returned, when he wondered if the fight was worth it, when the memory of friendships lost or the sting of family rejection left scars he wasn't sure would ever heal. On those nights, Michael's presence mattered most, not with grand declarations, but with consistency, with the simple act of standing beside him, refusing to let him carry the burden alone. It became clear to Alex that this was the real test, not the gossip, not the judgment, but the question of whether he could accept himself fully, even when the world told him not to. The answer came not in a single moment of revelation, but in the accumulation of choices. The choice to keep showing up, the choice to keep walking forward, the choice to love without apology. Their story was no fairy tale. Michael's career took hits, doors closed that might once have been open, and Alex's circle of friends changed irreversibly. Yet what remained was something sturdier than approval, truth. And truth, Alex realized, was heavier than shame, but infinitely more freeing. Over time, the noise began to fade. Not completely, never completely, but enough for Alex to breathe. Enough for him to see that the world didn't end when he stopped hiding. He learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear decide his future. And with Michael's hand steady beside his, he walked into that future not as someone defined by rumors or rejection, but as someone who had chosen honesty over silence. The message became clear in his heart, as simple as it was powerful. Love was not weakness. Love was resistance. Love was freedom. And though the road ahead promised more challenges, Alex now understood what he had lacked before: the strength to face them without shame, and the certainty that he didn't have to do it alone. In choosing truth, he had found not just Michael, but himself. And that, above all else, was victory.